We're talking ceilings and what's actually holding people back, because we think we've got a completely different idea of what the reality is versus what people think it is. But Nathan, you were just telling me about a pretty interesting conversation you just had. Run us through it.
Yeah, so I had my third year come and observe me in practice. Shout out to the legend. And so she asked this really cool question because she'd recently been to, not so much, she didn't actually go to a recent seminar that was in Perth, but it was a question that had come up post this seminar from a lot of the stuff that she'd seen from it. And she asked this question, was like, what's more important? She's like, people seem to say that communication is a really important skill in terms of chiropractic, healthcare, developing a practice. And then post said seminar, everything seems to be about just getting really good at the adjustment. If you master the adjustment, nothing else matters, and everything else will come to it, right? And it's the holy grail. And she's like, what's the truth? And I mean, if anyone knows me, they already know that I was probably giggling and I knew what I was going to say straight away. And the truth is, without a doubt, and apologies to the philosophy boomers out there, it's communication. It is the soft skill. Communication is key. One, how will anyone even know you can adjust well, which is its own concept we'll talk about in a moment, if they never see you? Communication is what gets people in the door. It's what people come to you for. It's what keeps people coming back and getting great results. It's not the adjustment. Chiropractic is not the adjustment. Chiropractic is the evaluation. The adjustment is the intervention. And we need to actually support that. But the whole point is that how can you even develop a great adjustment if you're not seeing anyone? I know a heap of chiros that I don't think adjust great, but have thriving practice because they're great at communication. They're great at supporting people. They're great at creating a therapeutic alliance. They're great at giving people and motivating them to do things. This whole idea is if you just got really good at adjusting, no one leaves school great at adjusting. We had this concept as well. The idea is this idea that you go through uni and you graduate and you feel like you're back in high school and you're the top dog, and then you get out in the real world and you're like, you shit. Everyone else is better than you. And it's just time in the game, right? We all had to start there. But if you can't communicate, it doesn't matter how good your adjustment is. It doesn't matter. Obviously, we need to deliver on the promise. We need to get great results, and we need to really invest and work on our skills. But communication will be number one every day of the week forever. There is no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to tell me twice. Hey, this is the conversation. The amount of people who they're like, yeah, my clinical skills are gone. Had to get out of that associate role. Had to go do my own thing. And it's like, sweet. And I believe you. And then they're like, yeah, but now I'm just sitting there doing nothing. No one's coming to see me. The door's not opening anymore. Yeah. You're like a Ferrari that's locked in the garage. Yeah. Good on you.
Sure. It's also probably more of a Datsun 180B than a Ferrari, let's be honest out here. But anytime someone says to me, and there's the two most dangerous people in healthcare, but we'll say specifically in chiropractic, is the fifth year or the associate that tells you that their clinical skills are gone, but they're you look at their practice or their clinical numbers and they're behind everyone else, right? Yeah. That is someone that has no introspection or reality going on. If you can't build a practice as an associate, the odds of you building a practice as an owner is about wall-to-wall sweet FA.
Slim. It's slim.
Yeah.
It's lean, if you will.
It's not lean, it's skinny, which is the one we're trying to avoid here, right? It doesn't mean it can't happen. I just the contrast is, so you can't build a practice when someone else is footing all the bill. And so you're assuming that you're going to get motivated enough now that you have to foot the bill to do the work that you could have done easier. There's some people that are just in a terrible model for them, but then a lot of them surrender to it and don't even try and develop the skill. So it's, I'm all here for it. I'm here for finding the right space. And if you think your own space is that thing, but almost every associate that I've seen that can't generate a level of success in a practice, and usually they've gone to multiple practices, who then's I'm going to open my own thing. Usually, if I think of the 10 that I can think of offhand right now, only one of them is still a chiropractor. And by chiropractor, I mean they work in occupational rehab as a chiropractor. They don't have a practice. The other 9 have since dropped out of the profession, sadly. The odds are not in your favor. This is not Hunger Games.
What do you reckon that is? Because obviously you can't build a practice is it that they are just in the wrong job, ultimately, that they should have never been a chiro?
There's always going to be a percentage of people that's true for, right? And I have thought that of people and seen great improvements, usually because those people, they got to 5th year and they invested in support and mentoring. They were at events. They actually finally got it. They went forward. So I do think it can be improved. But some people should just never get there. I was speaking to a nameless academic, because I don't want to shout anyone out, about a former student that shall also remain nameless, who I think they should have never let graduate. It's a real harsh thing to say, but these people exist. not because they're a danger, just because they're useless and they're not good for the profession, right? Like, it's a hard thing to say about someone, but you're like, we've all went through uni and there was people in your like second or third year where you wanted to be like, great segue, great thing. I'm in year 11, geometry and trigonometry. Shout out to our teacher, Mr. Pushkin. He walks up to one of the students, drops a TAFE book. This is a TE or TER subject on there. And he's like, you'll be needing this for next year. Sometimes you've got to be able to make that call. And fair play, that student took that really well, owns a massive plumbing business, and is probably worth freaking millions. So sometimes it is the right move, right? He is ready for the AI revolution. Miss Pushkin was ahead of the game. But the point here is sometimes you just have to sit someone down and be like, brother, this ain't it. But the problem is the universities are paid on completion and completion looks good. If someone's ticking the boxes to a point, even though this person I think took 2 or 3 years to finish 5th year, there's no helping them. And like, I do think we need to have some level of like exit strategy for someone like that.
Yeah, because it's too easy to get into. This is so funny because I was having this conversation on Sunday with someone. It's like the bar to get in is too low because there's not enough demand. So in Queensland, we used to have OP scores. I don't know how that translates. Did you guys do like ATAR or something?
Yeah, same kind of thing. That was like, for us it was called TEE. That's how old I am. But I think now it's ATAR or TER or something. I'm old, man.
It was not high. It was like mid. Like I dawdled my way through high school and still passed with flying colors. Not because I'm a genius, because it was so easy. So I think the bar's too low to get in to start with, but then the sunk cost of, you're 5 years in for someone to say, no, you can't, like you're not good enough. Because we had a couple of those as well. It's like, there's no real win there, is there? There's a necessary evil. You either lose 100K, but you stop someone from wasting their life, or you just let them go and then they drop out anyway.
Yeah. Like, I think it needs to be at like that 3rd year where they like can qualify for their Bachelor of Science. Just be like, all right, you're going to scrape this in, but let's save you a bunch of time and energy here and just you out the side here, right? I don't know. Maybe they think they'll make a good researcher that ends up teaching and just shits about the profession that they were never good at. But no one's like that in unis. Anyway, crossing it off. You know what? Before we leave this alone, I know we're off topic here. There's one other point I want to make, which is one of my favorite conversations to have with chiropractor.
For the people listening, the side eye that you just did then was like indescribable. We're going to have to go back and get that.
That is getting clipped for sure. In full disclosure, I don't speak for Murdoch University, of which I am still technically employed by as well. And it's not alone to all unis. There's always some ones in all the unis that you're like, what the fuck? But the point I was going to make, and this is what I like to call a shower thought, but it comes from the conversation before around the communication versus adjustment. How do you know you adjust well? Because you can't adjust yourself. You will never know what it feels like to be adjusted by you, right? Like I've been adjusted by some people and I hope my adjusting feels like that because I thought it was groundbreaking. But these people who talk up how they are the best adjusters in the world, and is it just because you've had a bunch of people like just big you up and be nice to you, or like how do you know? And don't tell me it's because you can make more things go bang.
I think it's that. I think that in those 2 stages that you mentioned before, it's probably that. Oh
man,
sick. All right,
it's just
that was a ramble, but it actually kind of leads into the topic that we're going to talk about, which is ceilings, and not ceilings like, oh, you're stuck at 200, you need to change this system so you can get to 202. We just want to talk more so about the person, because we want to ask a lot of questions about what's going on, what's normal, what could change, and I'd say a shared belief that we have is, what I have certainly is like better you, better everything. So it's like, if you're going to focus on something, focus on yourself. That will break whatever the next thing is. So looking at, if you're a typical chiro business podcast, this is what it would sound like. I used to see associates come in, they didn't believe in the treatment philosophy or the care plans that they were selling. They would fall into 2 buckets. First one would either be a really good converter, but then never grow. So it was like there was heaps coming in, but then they would drop out before, it mattered, like the comparison. Or they just could never get past like a certain number. And usually it's not a capacity thing, it's a belief thing. So it was about 120 per week was like the figure in that model. Most podcasts are going to say, okay, you need to work on your clarity, got to get that scripting down. And for both of us, we know that's a lot of shit. That's stuff that, sure, it's important, but there's an internal thing going on there. It's usually it's a disguise of a bigger problem somewhere else. And I love the saying that's about, if you don't solve a problem in your life, it'll like keep showing up in different variations until you do. Have you heard that one before?
Yeah.
I think
the same idea of go on.
No, you're right. You go.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say it's the same philosophy of like how you do one thing is how you do everything, right?
Yeah. And it's just like you could be in one model doing one thing, being like, I don't like this care plan model. That's the problem. Then you go over to you go to the other end of the spectrum, do a bit more of a rehab thing. Same thing, you hit a cap, can't get past. It's just showing up in different ways. So we got to work out what's probably the core thing. If we could do that today and be like, well, what do we believe is the core thing to start with? Then I think these ceilings don't become ceilings anymore. It's just how much, then truly is a capacity issue. You've only got 24 hours in a day like everyone else. So how you're spending it, because that I think for us is the most important thing. So personally, Nath, what have you noticed? Like if you had to just like pick one thing to teach a chiro who was open to learning, they weren't already stuck in a model, they didn't already have these sunk costs, like they were like an open book, free to the world, they were going to go change the world in their mind, their way. What's like the thing, what's the trait that you would start with?
I think it like open to learn and being coachable is the same is the trait across all elements in life, right? Now it depends where a person's at, like whether they're like about to start. I think it's people that are willing to learn everything and then use it as a framework for their own human experience and what they want to do, right? Because if you don't have a level of introspection, if you don't have a level of understanding, and you don't have a level of the people you actually want to work with, practice is it's a lot, right? And so I think that's where it all starts. Is like self-development, self-learning, and introspection is where it starts. But being open to the fact that you don't know it all is probably my like
Yeah.
simplest thing. Like I'm we're 13, 14 years in here, and I am still learning new things every day, which is a joy, and other days just like head knocking against the wall. But that's part of the fun, right? Because life and practice are moving forward, and you want to move with it. Like I really like the expression. I've heard it from a number of chiropractors, but I'm going to use Dr. Craig Foote for this one. Like he's like, I've seen chiropractors that spend 10 years in practice living the same year for 10 years, and chiropractors that spend 10 years learning and growing, they're never the same chiropractor. And it's the people that
Yeah.
want to be the second that tend to do well. The people who just lock into one thing and do the same thing forever, even if it doesn't seem to work or they're not enjoying it, are the ones that don't have a good time.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the, that's funny because I didn't know if I was going to bring this up today, but that led straight to this. So when I've been going through that new demographic, like trying to work out what the problems are and stuff. And one of them was that it's like intent, basically. It's like living your life with intent. And I was trying to think of like who's the opposite of that. And it's just someone like going through life on autopilot. I was trying to give him a name. I don't play games, like video games, but do you know what, when I say an NPC, do you know what that means?
I do play video games, but I don't own
Oh,
gaming
okay, there you
machines at
go.
home anymore because I'm a problem. I grew up in the
Yeah,
LAN
right.
cafe era, and I like would disappear for 14 hours in a day as a 16, 17-year-old, and my mum would have to try and find me because I was there playing Counter Strike and World of Warcraft, and yeah,
Okay,
I have to
so
really minimize my gaming time.
yeah, so
Non-player
listen for the
character.
listeners, a non-player, yeah, a non-player character is basically the people who fill the space in the game. They have a subset of lines. They got no purpose being there. You wouldn't notice them if they weren't there. They're just going through the motions. It reminds me of that movie, Free Guy,
Free
that
Guy.
Ryan.
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah, yeah. So good. I was like trying to think of a name. I came to the point of a non-playable Cairo. And it's just
Yeah.
like these Kairos that are just like reading the script. They got no purpose in life. They're stuck on the same thing. They've only say the same amount of the same stuff every day. And I was like, that's the enemy. That's the guy that just does the same thing for hates their job, wants to get out of their practice, never has enough money, like the NPC.
Nah, that is almost like non-payable Cairo as well. It's just, yeah, that's a nightmare.
Oh man, no amount of scripting training
Mm.
is going to fix it. It's like you got to be someone who lives with intent and actually wants to make a mark on the world. And that would be my thing for, like, if I had to pick one trait, it's have you thought about it? Do you have that purpose? Are you trying to go down that other road? Because we're in this industry that, like, I would argue, majority of chiros, maybe not by the definition, but are some kind of like they have the same traits as entrepreneurs. Like we're in this
Yeah.
profession that kind of has a bit of hate around it. You sort of have to know what you're going into already. And then you got to know just like to have thick skin to deal with things. Someone called me a quack yesterday.
Yeah.
That's just
Oh,
how it is. So we've got like this rebellious trait in us, but it's like some of us then try and be white bread and it doesn't, it's like conflicting.
pandering, right?
So
Like there's this concept that you're talking about, like with you have to have a level of perseverance and thick skin. One of my favorite things I ever heard was from my good friend Miles Upfold, because both his children are now, I believe, studying chiropractic. And we were sitting around having a chat, doing some masterminding, and one of the other guys was like, "Oh, did you encourage your kids to do chiropractic?" And he's like, "I did not." He's like, "Because I wanted them to choose it, because you need a level of thick skin and perseverance, or you can't survive. And if you feel like you're obliged into it, that's never going to work. You have to let it pick you." Like, this is the same feeling. People that go to chiropractic because they hear it's a thing, rather than those that had an experience and go in. That's a massive determinant in people that will do well, right? So I think that idea of like perseverance is so big, but we are naturally entrepreneurial because we have been private practice for our entire careers, our entire existence. Even though we are primary care practitioners, we've never, in Australia at least, and majority of the world, had a like employee-based way to move forward. It's not like physiotherapy could go work in hospitals and outpatient centers. OT's the same, right? Chiropractic has always been private practice. There are some alternatives coming up now, and it's still hit or miss whether it's a good thing. But the truth is, we had to go down this pathway and be like this, and that has self-selected over time because there was no other option.
Yeah, literally. And there still really isn't. It's not like it's
No.
changed. You can't just go and get a job somewhere in the sense of unless there's already another chiro who's done the work to start their own business. Yeah. So then with that defined, it's okay. So you can't just read the recipe, but coincidentally, you need to develop your own. You know what I mean? It's like you can't just be like, okay, cool, I'll be rebellious and whatever, and then show up differently every day. So for me, that'd be then maybe the second thing. It's okay, you've got this entrepreneurial spirit. What is the entrepreneurial spirit? What that means is you have a passion and a problem and a thing that you are fully committed to solving. Like that's your thing. And I feel when someone goes down that NPC route, and this isn't to blame any coaching programs or anything like that, but it's when they haven't determined their internal sort of problem that they solve, they seek it externally and then end up in a system that they don't love. Does that make sense? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, grads is to go into a system, right? Like when you first graduate, you don't know what you don't know. And so being open and like we talked about before, being open and coachable and going and trialing different technique systems, like I really encourage, if in doubt, go join a practice that is more systems based because it'll at least give you a foundation to work off, right? The skill in my mind is always how do you take a rigid system and turn it into a framework that you operate as you within rather than just being the rigidity, right? Like most of us, it's like training. You have to start and get the basics down, right? Like you must be consistent and do the basics and do them well. And then as you learn more about yourself, how you respond, you get to develop this flair and this framework that you find your best version of yourself within. But of course, when we're a student and when we're graduating, all we have to reference is usually what we experienced in the student clinic. If you were intelligent, you spent a lot of time in practices, but for a lot of people, they just have gone through the student clinic and they come out and that's their only knowledge. And oh, geez, no wonder we're having a bad time.
And then you could extend that on further to your associateship. So as you said, like go out and learn different things. Like I got asked that maybe last week. Someone was like, what would you say if I was going to go to a practice that may be more philosophy boomer than I personally think I am? And it's like, how many years do you reckon you'd give yourself? I'd say 2 solid years is probably enough, 2 to 5, to get an understanding of where you sit. I was talking to a guy yesterday, Friday, and Brandon, great case study for this as well, was in
Shout
a
out.
system, Brandon, shout out, that was more towards the philosophy, structured care plans, structured programs, just that system. Went out there, great, learned his adjustment skills, learned his communication skills, how to handle patients, all that sort of stuff. Brilliant. Had some awesome cases too, random stuff. Then got internally, I'd say, like became self-aware. Hey, this ain't, what I want to do. Probably a conversation for another day is that there's like an intrinsic belief with chiros that if you're not doing high volume, you're not going to make money. But anyway, we'll move past that. He left, then he was like, okay, I'm going to start my own, but I don't want to do that thing. So then what he did was just fully overcorrect to the other end of the spectrum. Once a week, 4 weeks, discharge after. And at the time, I knew it was an overcorrection, but I've seen it happen twice now. So it's like, okay, it's I don't know what it is. Would you call it like they feel guilty? Like where would that mindset come from? Is it guilt? Is it
But
just that misalignment?
It's the standard, right? When you reject something, you usually go to the polar opposite. So all you have to look, and I would say that social media drives this as much as we all love it, but you look at political systems. If you look at the US political system right now, if you look at most policies, and I don't want to get political, but over the years, most major parties are 90% the same, right? It's just subtleties and like belief systems that people change on. But what happens is when we've got to a point where if someone rejects one thing, it must be the polar opposite. So right now, like you look at the thing, it's like all the Republicans are the right wings, apparently the nationalists and all these things, and the Democrats are the woke, lefty, hippie kind of thing, right? Whereas it's most people are in the middle. And so what you tend to see in all things, when you decide that you're not happy with something, you overcorrect to reject it. And we've seen this countless times. Healthcare's the worst for it. So there's this fear of being labeled of overservicing, even though the person may not have been overservicing, they just either don't understand the research behind it to understand it or whatever. So they overcorrect to be like, I'm going to give patients back the power. And so they underservice them. The person doesn't get results. And then it further pushes the chiropractor or the physio or down the other way where they're like, I'm just not good at my job. It didn't work here and it didn't work there. And so like you said, like I graduated and I ended up going to South America and going the most traditional philosophy-based boomer setup you could ever go because I was like, I need to know. I want to find out. And I went down there and I learned so much, so many good things. But I got to a point where I was like, all right, I really liked most of this. There's a section here I'm not about, like both from the core premise of how we help people and the way we do it. I want to take the structures, the systems. I want to allow myself to do more certain work. And I want to modify and play with the frequency and see where I end up. And so what I find when I'm like doing my one-on-one coaching, I usually have to bring people back from underservicing rather than overservicing. If you went online, you'd think there was this pandemic of overservicing going on. Whereas really we're in a pandemic of underservicing because we undervalue ourselves like we never have. And then people are afraid to critique. Like I literally saw a guy, I even know how it came on my feed, bitching about health practitioners. So he's had his first major injury in his life, this guy. In 6 weeks has seen 7 practitioners and is just complaining that all the practitioners are trying to do is get the next booking and therefore like it's wrong and it's just a business. And he's like, one guy even said we could pre-book the first 10. He's like, how's he even going to know how I'm going to respond? Of course, you can see all the struggling practitioners be like, yeah, that's bullshit. Normally I'm like, if people aren't almost perfect after 3 visits, I'm doing my job wrong. I'm like, research doesn't support that. That's just you afraid. And then the other side, someone has clearly missed explaining to this guy, hey, I understand what's going on. This is what you have. This is the timeline it normally takes to heal. This is what I expect we're going to need to do based on the research and my experience in terms of treatment frequency. And this is how we're going to check in. But it's a real funny thing to watch because you've got someone who's clearly ignorant, and so he should be. He's not a health practitioner. He doesn't know. He's gone to all the different health practitioners. He's desperate for a diagnosis. So he gets diagnoses from multiple practitioners not even legally allowed to diagnose, remedials and things like that. They all basically hone in, chiropractor is going to give you a more joint-based approach. The physio is going to give you more muscle-based approach. The remedial can only give you a muscle-based approach. I think the acupuncturist is going to give you a more meridian-based approach. They're all actually approach to the same thing, but he doesn't know. He's freaked out. And instead of taking it as I shouldn't just be trying to chop and change between everything to magic my way to fix, he's blamed everyone else. But as practitioners, we then play into that and we've overcorrect. So does overservicing exist? Absolutely, right? Ironically, from the people that I've spoken to in the government departments, most overservicing comes from certain industries combining accessories. I got the inside line from the Transport Accident Commission at one stage, a guy who worked in there, that most of the practitioners have to have a conversation to. And an example was someone who had seen a lady post-accident 6 times a week for 2 years, right? Now, 4 of those was in group Pilates and 2 were one-on-one with the practitioner. And so a lot of the time the overservicing is by getting like exercise classes covered under something because you have a certain qualification. And then realistically, that's what happens. But it's not just people sitting there hammering on people for 2 years, 5, 6 times a week. Like that just doesn't really exist. And I don't know why we're so afraid of it, but I think we're just so afraid of being labeled. And I know this is a long rant, but like being labeled that we are some kind of charlatan or anything, we're already sensitive to it. And so we actually don't give the right recommendations to people. We don't get them results, which then means our practice doesn't grow anyway. And then we go, oh, chiropractic doesn't work. I've tried it one way, I didn't like it. I tried it the evidence-based way. And I mean, we could have a whole episode on what evidence-based actually is and understanding it, but I'm not going to go down that right now. But we basically, it's like that meme of the guy riding the bike and just shoving the thing in the wheels and just knocking himself off and crying. He was you're just hurting yourself.
Yeah. And I think ultimately too, like the goal I know this is the easiest one to pick on. So it's like the multiple high frequency model care plans, that stuff. The goal at the end of that is usually different. So structural alignment, whatever. And it's like, if that actually truly is the goal, if you've read the research on those protocols, that's what it needs. Like, if that's
Mm,
truly what you're trying to achieve. I find when the people have the misalignment is when there's some kind of like hybrid in there and they feel
mm,
like they're using that protocol, but they're not doing the protocol to verbatim. So they don't get the result of the protocol. And in their mind, they're like, oh no, but I helped the person. So I can just help the person and I can do it less frequent. And it's like, yeah, you
yeah,
probably can. But they don't put those two things together. It's like, if you're doing that model, you got to know the goal that you're trying to achieve. Because if you do it less and then discharge, that's a different goal. Like, you're not going to
yeah,
achieve that outcome. And it's totally fine if you as a practitioner have a different goal than another practitioner because you're your own person. Some people want to change structures. Some people just want to get people back to the gym, improve their strength and conditioning, all that sort of stuff. So I think what we're saying here is it's like you you will go into those models as you did in your experience. There was stuff you agree with, then there was stuff you didn't. But it didn't mean that you went and fully flipped to the other side and then said, oh, those guys are scamming. It's like, no, no, they had a different goal than you had. So you can take parts and bits, but ultimately, again, if you don't know what the goal is or the product, like why you do the thing you do, you'll never find, you'll just be an NPC or you'll just be frustrated or you'll just drop out of the profession.
yeah.
That's the misalignment.
We never find the fulfillment, right? Like practice should be fun, challenging but fun. It should be profitable, long run. But the thing that people miss is the fulfillment, right? If you're not enjoying it, like you can have a fun practice, but you're not fulfilled by it. If you're not getting fulfillment, something is off. And it's usually, like you said, like that's probably a really big hitting the old nail with the hammer there. It's usually because you're trying to combine like the approach of one model, but the goal of another, or vice versa, right? And that's not going to work. It's, what's my one of my favorite quotes ever? Like this guy is talking about this is going back to training, but he goes to this giant, like I think it was in like Bulgaria training hall for all these well-known weightlifters, and there's this big slogan on the wall, and he's like, "What does it say?" And he says, "If you want to squat more, squat more." It's one of the best pieces of advice ever. So you want a bigger squat? Do more squatting. Holy shit, revolutionary, right? But it's that simple. It's, does the goal align with the process and the frequency? If your goal is just to get people out of acute pain, right? Acute pain often follows a normal sort of inflammatory response. Usually, but sub 2 weeks, it's going to move forward. It's not going to necessarily fix things, but if you just want to get people out of acute pain, yeah, sure. That's why you're not actually really. I would almost argue with people who go low care frequency, like once a week for a couple of weeks or once a fortnight. You're not actually doing anything. You're probably just working with natural history to get them out of acute pain. Again, if you're like not better than natural history, now, again, most of the natural history research is its own problem, but then are you doing anything? Now, if you can say that you helped people, feel confident with what they're doing in return and you get value from that and you're happy with the way you do, yeah, no problem, man. But I think the other thing that we should touch on here before we even move into the things deeper is that someone else doing something a different way doesn't devalue what you do, and you doing something a different way doesn't devalue what they do. And all this sitting online yelling at each other and all this just harms people rather than helps people. I said 99% of us are just trying to do the best thing with what we understand and our experience. If I go to your social media and 99% of it is you trying to shit on others, and I know with marketing, you like a big part of it is saying what you aren't to get where you are. But if almost all your marketing is just shitting on other approaches, it's because you're terrible at your job and you're a bad person.
Yeah, and I can speak on that. Like, I think you can build a personal brand on positive or negative. I don't want to say energy because I'm not that voodoo-y, but you definitely
Yeah,
can.
I
And
am.
people are afraid of getting hate. Yeah, people are afraid of getting hate online. I don't think I've really got anything that bad
Of substance.
that, but I don't be negative. I just try and see the positive. I don't argue with people.
Mm.
If someone's a dick, I just block them. There's two
Yeah.
different ways to build a profile. The easier, more controversial way is to call out and be negative, which is what the whole health industry is about. The more fulfilling way that'll actually fill your book with people that, you want to build a community and have people supporting you is to do it the positive way, which is probably slower, but it's a lot more fulfilling too. And it will just
Well,
reflect internally.
I'm going to fight that analogy for 1 second. I don't think the negative way is faster. I think it's a faster way to a follow account. But if your
That's what
goal
I
is to
meant.
put
Yeah.
people, put people in your clinic, you don't get, in general, people in your clinic from negativity. I encourage everyone to go look at the people that all they do is go negative on practitioners. Those people, all they're doing is selling to practitioners. They're not trying to get people in. They probably couldn't if they wanted to, right? Probably the best example of this, old mate Adam Meekins, right? And Adam's got some great stuff. He just got some kind of bee in his bonnet, manual therapy, about other things, and just wants to like hammer and shit on it all, but has built a following and makes money off people buying into it. But so be it. He's got some reasonable stuff out there, but I don't have him follow him because I don't like the energy. I just think it's a silly and uncomfortable thing to do. And all power to him. And one of the craziest things was watching him like tear a disc in his low back and then trying to explain that he wouldn't go see another physio. A mechanic doesn't take his car to another mechanic. And I was like, man, that mindset is just so self-limiting, so incorrect anyway. But just that, like, it's almost like he backed himself into a corner where he couldn't now go and get some help because he'd spent an entire career building up the idea that you didn't need help. But it's a dark place to be in.
I mean, because the other thing there too, which we don't need to go down this road, but it's like, sure, he goes that way, but then it's like, people are human. They're not going to do your protocol perfectly either. So it's like, what are we arguing here? But anyway, all power to him, as you said. Yeah. So that's, I think the in terms of like ceilings and stuff, is it's your own ceiling, right? Like internally, your ceiling is probably going to reflect externally what the ceiling looks like. For a lot of those two demographics, that fifth year who's maybe ignorance is bliss, they don't know what they don't know, then the same sort of pattern can happen as an associate going out on your own. You don't know what you don't know. One way that I've found helps, and I know it sounds really stupid, but it's content. Just making content for me. I've read, you can see this bookshelf behind me. That's probably a third of the amount of books I've read since I was like 22. I don't know why. When I was 22, I picked up a book and I haven't stopped since. There's like, in terms of personal development, I don't know what it is, but it's like when you actually have to sit down, think about a topic, explain it nice and clearly, write it out, say it, edit it, and then post it to the public and then stand by that thing. That's like putting action behind what you're doing. And the amount of people that I've seen, there's like this cliche thing in the content world, which is like post 100 posts and then you'll know what you're talking about. It's real. It's 100% real. Happened for me. I've seen it happen to Brandon as well. I've seen it happen to other practitioners where they hit the thing that they actually care about and the way they talk about it after that many posts. Cause it's about 3 to 6 months, depending on how hard they go, but they really focus in on what they care about. They get a little bit of feedback from the algorithm, like based on what works better, but largely things that work better are when you believe it, when you question it and you have a passion for solving that thing. So if we moved on from, you've got to find your middle ground within chiro and how you care, but then it's like, next thing then is then now that you've got that thing, what problem do you solve? How do you solve? Like, what do you care about? That'd be the next ceiling. Cause I go to this gym, it's just literally next door. It's what you'd call like a functional gym, like a CrossFit-y vibe. I go in there at 12. I see 3 physios working one-on-one with clients in there. They are all, oh my God, the Netherlands have just scored. It's 1-0. 20 minutes to go. They are all like old people, like 50, 60-year-old, the clients that they're having. I can see in the physio's eyes that they are dying inside. Like they don't want to explain how to step up onto a step to someone. They probably didn't do a sports related degree, go and work in a functional gym to help Mary with her groceries out of the back of her car. Sorry to be brutal, but that's just how it is. And I desperately just want to say to them, you're here because you never thought about how you want to use your tools to solve what problem. Like you've never passionately thought about that. There's probably 50 to 60 founders just in this little area starting their own businesses who are young, want to stay fit. They want to make sure they're doing things right that you could be working with. That's probably more your demo, but you've not thought about that and gone out and got that. So that again is like another ceiling. You can bounce between practices, but if you end up with the same bucket of average Joes, it's because you never thought about that thing, like how you want to use your practice to solve that problem. Do you reckon that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Absolutely. Funny enough, I was at the gym this morning and you get a lot of the new grad ex-fizzers there and it's the same thing. Like it's more of an oldies gym. They're taking them through stuff and I'm watching these guys just like subtle size, just like keep checking their phone, just no interest, right? And like also at least feign interest with the person, right? Like at least like, you're not certain yet, but like at least deliver something to the person. Like And there are people that love working with the oldies. I know I've got a couple of new grads that like they want to focus on more geriatric care. They love working with the vibe of the oldies. They're here for it. So
Good.
there's people who
Yeah.
that is their demographic. Probably working with a bunch of athletes being like, what a princess. Could I just get like
Yeah.
old Mary who brings me my passata when she does passata days and like rocks on through. But yeah, like who's your crew? There's no point. Again, this comes back to the same thing you're talking about content. If your content's talking to other practitioners, you're talking to the wrong people. If it's talking to the wrong demographic, and again, it's the holy triad. Who do you like? Who do you get good results for? Who can afford to pay you? If you're just working on one or two of those legs of that stool, it's always going to fall over. There's no doubt about it. And you're right. Like you have to like enjoy, or at least have to enjoy the majority. And even the people that they aren't your prime demographic, you still like them. Like you can live with that.
Yeah.
I also think it comes back to the capacity idea, right? Like not to have a really binary idea, but a lot of people don't understand their capacity. And like capacity is the same no matter whether you want to have a lower visit, higher cost model or a like higher volume model. Like I'd say like shorter, longer timeframes. But most people either far infatuate their actual capacity or underappreciate it. But it's simply like most people will never get over 80, 90%, right? Just because of natural changes, reschedules, no shows, all that sort of fun stuff. But capacity also happens at different levels. And as humans, we're so attached to a number. Like, I know this is a bit of a jump, but for those crew in the gym, you're in the gym right now, pushing along, we have set numbers that we want to hit. And, you know, I came from a powerlifting world. Usually it's like the 100 kilo bench press was every guy's like dream at 16. Right? Every male wants to hit 100 kilo bench press. Most of them don't get there, or most of them will get caught at like 90, 95, 97 and a half. And something about that number doesn't let them push through. And one of the most common things that trainers do is they just change the plates around. So it's actually the same number, but it's not the two blues. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Two blues on either side. And suddenly the person presses it fine. It's the same concept. Suddenly you're like the number you could never hit. Now you can do it for reps and you blow past it. This is the same thing that happens in practice. Most ceilings are you as a human not being ready to make the move through, not that you don't actually have the capacity. Every time I've hit a ceiling in practice, let's say it's the 100 visits a week, usually you do like 95, 98, 99, 97, 95, and you never blow through it. Then you fix something up and like in how you communicate, in what's going on in your life, and suddenly the next week you're at 113. These arbitrary ceilings are sort of like that idea of the resistance in our mind around something. Until we let that go, and I know this is a bit energy and voodoo for some, but I thought the same thing and it's been true for my entire career, so I just did it and moved through it. If we don't clear those resistances, we never move forward. This is the same thing we talked about moving from the high volume to a lower volume counter. When you're in practice and you start to see some volume or something, things, you're going to get this idea like maybe you're getting caught behind a little bit, or maybe there's an energy you're not certain about. It's because you're being tested. And then you need to figure out whether it's a true test or not. Is this the test of just me growing? Is this the test of me developing? When I first deadlifted 200 kilos, it was an absolute monumental thing. And then there was a point where I could do 15 of them, but I had to continue past the hard to get to that. When you start to get to that point, you're going to get the kickback, the hard. And then you need to decide with experience and time and energy, is that feedback true? And you don't actually want to push to this level and you want to hold back and that's where you focus? Or is it just you making that next step? And I think it sort of leads off what we're just talking about. Like the ceiling is so much more around you finding who you are than anything else. It's not because you need to go run a bunch of ads or you need to go do like 7 talks or you need to put people on a higher frequency of care. It's you need to figure out you and actually lean into it, or lean into it for a little bit and then realize, no, the truth is I need to lean back out.
So then if we went, okay, so then you're having that convo, you're stuck at 95, 97, 98. What I kind of want to bash on the common advice at that point, just to give context, because like typically the things off the top of my head, you're going to hear, you mentioned capacity then, but you didn't say it in any sort of version of, oh, you should drop your appointments to 5 minutes and double stack and have that sort of capacity. You should basically the advice I hear is if you're stuck at that level, you have a time capacity or some kind of like optimization capacity. Does that ring true? What usually would you hear as the standard advice?
I mean, the thing is, that is real common. But I think, like I said, the maths is easy, right? It's just simply like, all right, you've got 20 hours a week that you see people. You currently average 5 new patients. It takes you half an hour to do a new patient, half an hour to do a report of findings. mostly going to come back within the week. So you've got 15 hours you can adjust in. Let's say in this example, let's say we're doing 10-minute appointments. You're doing 6 an hour. So what's that? 65 within 90. You got 90. You can see 100 a week, right? At 100% capacity between those visits. So if you're stuck at 96, you're at like 96% capacity. Yeah, you've got a true capacity issue. You either need to get faster, work more. That's a true capacity issue. Most of the people that are stuck at ceilings are at 50% of their current capacity or 60%, right? So that's not the issue. Like I would say of the just absolute avalanche of people that I've worked through, people like through this idea with, capacity is rarely the issue.
Capacity.
Or like true like mechanical capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, same. So then, because that is always the thing. It's like, oh, you need to make more capacity. You need to delegate this so you're not handling that. That's probably the most common thing I see. Then so there's this other concept that I still don't know how true it is, but have you heard of Dunbar's
Number. Yep.
law? Number? Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically I can break it down. There's a theory that it's the amount of relationships we can comfortably maintain with people. Breaking it down, the core group, which is like your tightest intimate circle of loved ones, is about 5. The sympathy group is close friends you see regularly and know well, 15. Friendship good friends, 50. Meaningful contacts is 150. So amount of people you can personally know. Acquaintances, 500, and then recognizable faces, about 1,500. I would argue, so it says the layer of meaningful contacts is kind of where I would see patients at, like enough about them. It says it often ranges between 100 and 230. I would say that's pretty close to how many people someone can manage in terms of active patients. It's because where we're probably leaning into this is like emotional intelligence. Like if you're going to go to that next level with this sort of stuff, your emotional intelligence needs to be higher. I've met people who have like 400 or 500 on program and their emotional intelligence is exceptional. Like they've really gone into that. So that's like the other capacity. It's like, how many people can you just deal with and maintain? And this is just a theory, but this is something I think rings true a little bit as well. Like when you're younger, still trying to work out how you do things. If you're still changing your own product and problem that you solve, it's hard to manage these because you might have 100 people on the old system and then you're introducing new people and it's hard to change someone to a new system. Do you have to get rid of it? Like this is like another capacity thing that I find people don't consider, and maybe like why it feels like it's that invisible ceiling, but then you work on something yourself, you break through it. It's got nothing to do with time and mechanical capacity.
I think this is such a really good point. And because one of the things that we've seen over the last few decades is the average volume a health practitioner sees has come down, right? So when I graduated, the number was 300 a week was gold standard, right? And then the generation before me, it was like 500 a week was the upper echelon. Now 200 to 150 to 100 a week is probably, I had someone refer to 100 a week as high volume. And I was like, what? That seems like simple sort of basics through there, right? Again, comparatively. But we never managed so many relationships. I think because of social media, we have pulled a bunch of people into that meaningful relationship that you just follow online, right? Like you look at people deal with like influencers and celebrities like they're their mate. And so is our emotional intelligence and combined with our, I think emotional intelligence always has been on the decline, but then add in that capacity for people, no wonder it's being pulled down, right? And then you get the rise of, I guess, divergence and introvert and all those kind of things, which I think further potentially reduces that. You've never had a couple of generations of people that, like, if they talk for a while, they need to go recharge their batteries for a week. We're seeing more and more people opt towards a lower version model. Like this is maybe a groundbreaking idea here, young Angus. But yeah, so I think that's another thing, right? I think what is your capacity in terms of emotionally? And I do think it can develop, but I also think that's why your practice often goes like in the gym again. Who knows what my background was, where you go for this leap and then you're in this weird consolidation phase. You go for a leap and then you consolidate. And I think that's you like leaping, recovering, adapting. I have capacity again emotionally, capacity again like physically. Oh, we can do a sleep. And then my body's like, oh, no, hold on, we're hitting the echelon again. And then eventually you find your spot and you hold there. I think the best example of this idea is people who work in multiple locations. But if one location grows, the other location drops because they only have capacity still for, say, this 100 relationships. Yeah. So at like 3 locations, they're seeing 10 here, 40 here, and like 50 here. So they're like, I need to bring the one that's 10 up to 50. And they do. They're like, that one's at 50, but now the other 2 are at 25 because nothing's ever actually grown. They've just modified where they hang out with
Yeah, like as I said, it's only a theory, but I do feel it's a thing. Like the guy that I'm thinking
them.
of is Chris, who I used to work with. He, in terms of emotional capacity, it wasn't, it's hard to like define what that is, but it was just like the presence in the room. So still doing a 5 minute appointment, but made it feel like it was a 25-minute appointment. You know what I mean? And I think it's just like the presence of being there mixed then with the ability to trust the system that you have. So if you have a true mechanical timing issue, you're going to have an overflow. That's what a system problem looks like. A system problem isn't there's still space in the books and you can't get past this ceiling. You know, that's completely different. For this guy, it was like literally people fucking walking through the windows because he was so good at what he did. Then it's okay. Well, we need to remove the obstacles. If you're wasting time here and here, we need to optimize that. Maybe let the CA do that so you can help more people, because he had the capacity to care for people, slow down time and help them. But even for him, he drew the line and he was like, 200 a week's enough for me. Cool. You know, he probably could have done 1,000 a week. He didn't want to do that. He just sort of knew where he sat. So for him, then it's not a ceiling. It's more like a benchmark. And it's like, that's where I want to sit. And when I did notice when he went under that, he then would reflect back on what he was doing wrong and he'd easily get back up to it again. And it wasn't like a struggle like that he had to keep it up above 200. It was more like as you say, like you're training and you're keeping yourself as fit as you can. Facebook marketing doesn't work for 2 weeks. Didn't really matter because he already had that ability to keep people engaged. So I think ultimately, like that's probably the full circle. It's like he fully believed in his system, the problem he solved, who he helped. Then he had the capacity to understand, be present in the room, let the system, which is what the thing everyone tries to optimize first, handle itself. But you really need to work on yourself to get there.
You have to start with yourself. And like what he built is support. It's the idea in like investing, we have support and resistance. He built a level of support that even if he takes the foot off the gas a bit and things start to fall, they fall to his level of support. And it takes him no effort to build back up to that top level, which is his current resistance. You know, like you said, he drew the line where he was happy with. For him to then go to the next level would have changed, he would have need to change it, like his whole mindset and ideas, which is a hard resistance, which is, I think, where people do get caught throughout this, like we're talking about with emotional intelligence. Once you know your point, now again, I think one thing that does need to talk, just if you know your point is 10 visits a week, which it can be, you can't, that then doesn't work in a system that is more of a like volume system. If you're going to do 10 visits a week, you better be charging like several $100s for each of those visits because it doesn't work. Right. So there is a level of business that has to come to it. But yeah, like I think you're absolutely right in that, like if we go through the flow, we build, each time we force through resistance, it's a challenge. And we get a lot of that kickback, we get a lot of that feeling of discomfort, and then we decide whether we force through it. And if we don't force through it, we fall back to what our previous one was, and then we either accept that's where we want to be, or we change things and we go again. But then eventually you find the point where you're happy with what you're doing. And that will change because we go through seasons in our career that involves like more family focused, more maybe athletic focused, more business focused, whatever it is. And so you might have different capacities over those times. And then learning to adapt as you go through is a big part of that. Like I see less volume than I did previously because I'm happy where I'm at now. Whereas when I was younger, I wanted to see twice as many, and I did. But I'm also at a point now where I've set my practice up where I see 50% of people I used to see 10 years ago, but I make far more because it's optimized to add more value so I get paid more from it.
Yeah.
I'm going to add one other concept that I think needs to come on here. And I think this is particularly important for your associates or your newer practice owners, the reward cycle of when you break through a ceiling. And so what I've seen time and time again and experienced myself, and even with my associates, it will have a goal, right? People have their goal where it's 60 a week, 80 a week, 100 a week, 120, whatever it is. And let's say it's 100 a week, you work your ass off for months and months, you hit the goal, right? 101, 102, you're on it. And then you're like, I've worked really hard, I need a bit of a break. You cannot take a holiday until you have basically consolidated that number for 6 to 8 weeks, because it does not become support until you have had enough of multiple patient cycles to bring stability. I think we've talked about stability previously. If it is unstable and you're like, sweet, hit it, I'm going to go take a week off, a couple of weeks off, you're going to come back and you're going to be back at 60 because that your previous support has not risen yet. I had an associate do this to himself and it crushed him. Oh, Angus is getting excited. I'm seeing it. It just blew him apart. because you're like, I just did all the work and it just got ripped apart from you. But you haven't got it stable and consolidated, because once you have it stable and consolidated, you can take the time off and you'll come back. You'll only fall 5-10%, and then it booms straight back in. Go for it, Angus. I'm excited now. What do you got? What do you got?
It's 1-1. They just scored in the 91st minute.
Oh, no, right. Sorry.
Even
I was like, honestly, he's cheering me on here.
No, but this too.
Blowing his mind.
No, you're bang on. And so what I was going to say was, it's if you've hit that ceiling, it's probably the question isn't what am I saying wrong in the script? It's probably what am I not believing right now that's stopping me from going past that next thing? And then do I want that? That's usually the issue. I had another thought, but the other thing with emotional intelligence too is if you don't have a demographic, you're walking between a 21-year-old and a 75-year-old in the same day. That's exhausting. We've all done it, and it's a part of practice. But if you actually have a demo that all have a similar alignment, you don't stretch yourself as much. I used to think that was really cool, like to be able to do that. And I thought that's what emotional intelligence was, because you had range, but it's not. It's exhausting. You're doing like different jobs, basically talking to Mary about her grandkids and how picking up a bag hurts her back. And then the athlete who's trying to do strength and conditioning and trying to switch yourself into that mode. It's like, go all in on one thing. It'll get easier. You'll be able to handle more relationships because they are similar in nature. And then when you hit those limits, it's like, is it a system problem? Probably not. What am I seeing myself? And if you're an associate, you probably can't do this and just like increase prices, as you say, now that supply is limited. You would naturally increase prices if you're working on your own. But if you're working for someone else, you don't have that choice. So ultimately, it's like if you're an associate, go out there, you're working in a job, maybe just realize that you're learning, find the parts that you want to keep to add to your own practice one day, but don't look at it as like that was the be all and end all of evil. Now I'm going to go out and do the complete opposite, because I can guarantee you the complete opposite is going to leave you in the same boat. It's a you thing. It's not the way you're doing it.
Yeah. One of the most important concepts that must come from this is that learning what you didn't like is the most valuable thing in your career. I remember going to a seminar, went for the weekend, sat down with it was actually when I was fifth year with another student. I was like, what do you think? He's like, I hated it. It was a complete waste of my time and money. I was like, great. You just got the best value ever, because now you don't need to spend any energy on that again. Sometimes the best things are the things you didn't like and enjoy, because now you can just go, well, don't need to deal with that. Going into systems and learning what you didn't like is as important as what learning you did like, and then bring it together. But don't just like, wasn't throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So I didn't one thing about this, so I'm going to do nothing with it. That is the way you're going to get yourself in trouble and just not enjoy your career.
Yeah, I don't really know how people can hate on stuff when they've never experienced it. Like, how can you form an opinion on hating something if you haven't done it? That's always confused. Like, I had my first martini on the weekend. I know I hate martinis. They taste like crap. Didn't know that before, so I didn't have an opinion on it. I just see too many of these guys. They typically bounce from that philosophy over to the rehab, bro, and then they're like, oh, that's all a scam over there. Brother, you don't even know. Like, you can't scam people for their whole life and be a chiro that practices that way under this illusion, because clearly they're getting results, but you just don't want to do it that way. That's fine. It's that whole goals thing again. So yeah, I'd say, trying to think of how to wrap this up, it's like the ceiling that exists is usually inside. Whew, get that on a t-shirt.
Right, well, that comes back to my, like, the best adjustment is usually the one above the atlas, right?
Yeah,
same idea.
Same thing.
It's 100%, right? I think the ceiling is there we go. We're just going to keep saying statements. It's probably 2% of the time it's true structural capacity. 98% of the time it's you figuring your own self out and just accepting that we don't have it figured out. That's why we do things like this. That's why we listen, why we learn, why we go to PD, why we have coaches, we have mentors, we have support, we have friends that we can bounce things off. Is this actually a true issue, or is this just me finding my next best version of myself? Is this me going to my next level of Super Saiyan, or am I dropping back to basics right here? If we want to play some sweet Dragon Ball Z references.
Perfect. All right, we'll leave it at the Dragon Ball Z reference then.